So the pictures on the screen are a gentleman named Terry Mitchell from Leeds. I met Terry 2016, I think it was. Met him a couple of times. Lovely fella. And he was the only guy who, I intensively researched the life and times of Paul Sykes. So much that I did 3 books. And they were all bestsellers, and it got signed to be a film by Western Edge Pictures, and the idea is that they're going to be making a documentary. And my point being to going to meet Terry was his name kept coming up from a very famous altercation in 1979. Now, Wakefield as a whole has a lot of storytellers, and a lot of people beat Paul Sykes up. Some people say they did when they didn't. There's a lot of bullshitters on YouTube that will say, "Oh, I went to meet him and offed him out," and all this. Now, Terry Mitchell is probably the only guy I met or kind of discovered who actually beat a prime Paul Sykes, and all the other people just basically took liberties with an old man. So the reason that when Terry had a fight with Sykes was in a pub in Leeds, and it was the back end of, just trying to think, so it was about end of October, early November 1979. So the pub had a nickname known as the Madhouse. It was a market tavern. It's long gone now. It's in Leeds. Sykes was in there with a friend of his, Mick Sellers, who was a well-known wrestler on the scene. Do you know what? It was about 10 days before he was going to have a fight with Lenny McLean as well. I know Lenny in his book says that Sykes had a fight with several doormen and beat them all, but kind of managed to sustain a cut. That's not true. Well, he did sustain a cut, but he had a fight with one doorman. Terry wasn't actually on duty that day. I've met Terry and I've had the full details. Basically, they were drinking. I actually spoke to one guy who witnessed it, the whole thing, and he told me in detail what happened. And he just, Terry actually was there when Sykes fought the American Dave Wilson and put him in hospital. I think it was the year before, about 78. Maybe 79, was it? 78, 79. And so basically Terry knew who Sykes was. Sykes was a big fella, 6'3.5", arms 10 foot long, and could do damage at length. So basically Terry kind of got him at close distance, and the guy who I spoke to, who watched the whole thing, said to me, he said basically Terry just pulled him in close and kind of stuck the head on him about 15 times, and Sykes didn't want to know. Sykes then sent his mate home, Dave, what was he called? Mick Sellers, to get a change of shirt, and and Sykes was a right mess, and they stayed out drinking. They made friends after, and Terry said to me, he said, I thought, for a few hours he was going to put a sneak shot on me, but he never. And Terry actually only met Sykes twice, once to that incident and then years later, when hard times had got Sykes. And I think he said he basically looked at him and he was sat drinking in a park with a woman, and he thought, I can't believe that's actually the same bloke who gave me one hell of a fight. So that's the actual story. Terry Mitchell himself, lovely gentleman. As I said, I met him a couple of times. His name kept coming up, and Nick Manners said to me, Nick's a well-known face in Leeds, and he said Terry was on the doors in, I think it's an area called Hare Hills. The Shebeens was basically like a Leeds version of Middlesbrough's Blues. And everyone liked Terry. Terry actually wasn't even any kind of trained fighter. He was a rugby player. But I've met a lot of people the last couple of years, and I've met some, I've met Mike Tyson, and I've met Nigel Benn, and when I met Terry, you could kind of realise that he had an aura about him. He was, he probably is. I'm just trying to think. Sykes would have been 76 now. So I met Terry 6, 7 years ago, and he was probably kicking on for 70 then, maybe mid-60s, but he was still like a piece of iron. You know, you still kind of looked at him and thought, my God, you know, I would not want to roll around the floor with you. But absolutely lovely fella, perfect gentleman, you know, manners impeccable, and I had a cup of tea with him. And everyone likes Terry Mitchell. That's what I've discovered. Everybody in Leeds, you know, when I was with him in the CAF, there was some part in Leeds, and basically people were getting up, shaking his hand, and you know, trying to get his attention. But you can see on the pictures he was, you know, he's still in great shape. But yeah, and I've met a lot of people, and Sykes did kind of. That documentary was filmed in 88 to 1990, so it was aired on. 2 secs. Get out now. Get out. Go on. Out. Dog sabotaging. So that documentary was first aired on December the 4th, 1990. So Nick Manners, the incident with Sykes was 92. So Sykes kind of suffered a few good hard-ins from about the mid-90s. But kind of, certainly from about before 1990, it was unheard of. And obviously it's well documented, Paul Sykes' demise in the gutter, and a lot of people giving him good hard-ins. But that was, you know, a lot of people did take liberties with an old man. But from my thorough research intensively, Terry Mitchell was the only guy who actually really beat a prime Paul Sykes. And it was a fair fight. They were both really kind of drunk, and without a shadow of a doubt.